Is there really a difference between the recently released SAP Recipe Development and its perceived predecessor, SAP Recipe Management? Well, the short answer to this question is yes, there's a significant difference between the two. While we're not going to take a deep dive in this session, we are going to take this PLMin10 to highlight 3 key areas where we've seen improvements from SAP's Enhancement Pack 4 through Enhancement Pack 5. And the first area that we're going to take a look at is an enhanced user experience that focuses on the business role of product developer. Here's a look at the PLM 7.01 workspace. If you're a user of recipe management, you can see this is a whole different ballgame. There's no more transaction codes. Everything is much more web-like via the SAP NetWeaver business client. So all the PLM objects relevant to the product developer are just a click away. Process is also built right into the user interface, so work objects come into the work inbox, and then the user has much more control to customize the user experience via things like PLM favorites, for example. All right, now let's take a look inside a recipe. We've selected Create a Recipe from our left-hand menu, and we're going to actually make a copy of an existing one in the system. So we click Save, and there we've done that, and we have the version number added to the end. And now here's just an example of something that's been added, the incremental or progressive search for field completion that's been added to recipe development, a nice streamlining in the interface. So we'll save that data. And just as in recipe management, you can see there's a number of tabs with data that you can look at. For instance, the processes for the recipe, which includes multi-stages. Or you can look at the formula itself that makes up the recipe. And you can configure any number of layouts that you want depending on your industry. We're going to select here the process layout so we can see the ingredients in order of stage number as they move through the recipe. So we'll make a change to one of the components here and save that information. Again, everything's the data is much more accessible, fewer clicks away, and we'll show you here. If you select an item, just as in recipe management, you can drill down and take a look at the details of what makes up that ingredient. But again, it stays on one screen, so it's more accessible and easier to use. So you can see here the composition of the milk that we selected above includes the dairy solids, the water, and the milk itself. Another handy feature within recipe development is the addition of the object navigator. And what this does, it provides a number of reports in a single view on the recipe that you've selected. So you can, again, look at the structure. You can also look at how many versions there are of that recipe out in the system. And if you've made changes like we did on the prior screen, the where used is going to be a nice feature. You'll see the impact that change might have on any number of recipes if it's a formula change within your system. There's also, you can look at the linked documents that are associated with it, or maybe, for instance, any labels that might be impacted by changes that you've made in R&D. So it's a nice at-a-glance tool to use within recipe development. All right, next we want to take a look at formula optimization, which has been enhanced within recipe development. Before we get into the actual optimization feature, which is located under the Formula tab in recipe development, I wanted to point out some of the real-time calculations that are available to product developers that can help assist them, like optimization, to make sure that their development goals are on target. You can see with our chocolate dairy beverage example here, we've set up things such as nutrients, diets, and allergens that will track and calculate things like calories. You can then sort by ingredient to show how each ingredient is then contributing to each one of those configurations or those nutrient calculations. Likewise goes for allergens. The important thing to note here is that while this is a food example, if you were a paint or a chemical coatings company, you would want to set up these key figures for such things as maybe HAPS or VOC. So it is flexible to industry, and this example just shows what our food example would have in it from a system standpoint. Now what we're doing under the calculations is looking at cost. This is something that cuts across all industries and is often optimized for. So you can see that we can change currency value on the product to get a quick calculation of what it would cost from currency to currency. This could be dependent on which plant is producing the product. Additional flexibility within recipe development here that also existed in recipe management is the ability to insert a price other than the existing material price. For instance, if you sourced an alternative material and you want to insert the specification price, you can do that and see the results and how it would impact the total cost of the product. So now what we're going to do is we're actually going to go into the Formula tab and use the optimization feature. So we've selected optimization, and within here you can set up you can calculate on any number of objectives. We've selected calculations against price here, but you can see from what we've configured in the drop-down list, we could do any number of calculations. We select which particular property constraints that we want to use, any upper or lower limits. Some companies use the ingredient ratios as well. These are not currently configured in our system, but we will look at formula item constraints. So here you can see that we have lower limits and our upper limits for our ingredients. And then we can click optimize based on those constraints. So this is all working within a calculation. It's not committed anything to the specification at this point, and we've come up with an optimal solution. Now, if we like those results, we can, with the click of a button, transfer those results to the formula. So you can see here that now it's proposing to use 33, 23 pounds, 21 pounds, etc. of the ingredients, and the calculated prices, the optimized price is provided there. So if we want to accept those, we can transfer to the primary output specification. And this was a process in Recipe Manage that took a lot of effort, transferring each calculation one at a time. What's nice now in recipe development is with this pop-up window, we can transfer everything, all the calculations, back to the specification. So they're no longer calculated results, but they're actual data committed to the specification. So now that we've made changes to our formula, how do we make sure this is syncing up with our BOM? That's where product structure synchronization comes into play. It's new in recipe development. So here we want to select synchronize recipe to the BOM. And in our initial screen, we can see that currently this recipe is not aligned with the target BOM. So we want to start the synchronization process. Again, this is something that took a lot of manual effort prior to recipe development, a lot of manual intervention and checks. So now here we can automatically see where the conflicts arise between the current recipe and its alignment with the BOM. So we select one of the items and we want to take a look at the details. And if we scroll down a bit, we have to keep scrolling, we'll see that we have a quantity difference between two items. So once we accept these changes, it automatically synchronizes with the bill of material. And it's that easy. That does it for this episode of PLMin10. If you have any questions or you would like a custom demo to take a deeper dive, please feel free to contact me, Matt Duca, at mduca@linx-as.com. Thank you for joining us.